Greetings and salutations, friends and gamers of all stripes. My name is GM Dave. I am your man behind the screen, as I'm sure you can figure out from the title. I just got done watching the newly released Captain Marvel. When I say just got done, I mean I've been out of the theater for almost 2 hours now. Went to grab some dinner with the friends who I went and saw it with before recording this. So, what are my thoughts on the movie? It's fine. That's about it. There's not going to be any glorious outrage. There's not going to be heaps of praise because this movie is just plainly middle of the road. Meh. If you've seen an amnesiac hero movie, a generic amnesiac hero movie, you've seen Captain Marvel. But let's get into the long and short of it. What did I like about the movie? First and foremost, I really enjoyed Samuel L. Jackson. But then again, it's fucking Samuel L. Jackson. Of course, he was enjoyable. And in honesty, Samuel L. Jackson is the strongest actor in the movie. Not by a huge margin, but by a noticeable margin. He really is the one who carries this film. And if not for him, then there really wouldn't be a whole lot of worth in this movie at all. Beyond that, Ben Mendelsohn does a pretty fine job, and I found him quite enjoyable. He plays the main Skrull character in the film. And, you know, I've enjoyed him in basically everything I've seen him in, you know. Hey, Raph. Yeah, Ben Mendelsohn, yeah, he did fine as the leader of the Skrulls. You know, he was never featured in any of the trailers leading up to the movie. I mean, the Skrulls period weren't featured in any of the trailers leading up for the movie, except for the old lady who's disguised as a Skrull. But by and large, the Skrull have an odd place in this movie, because the impact that they have on the film, it's not what you would expect, and it's not as big as you would think, given that, you know, anytime they were mentioned in the trailers, it was always about, oh, scroll this, scroll that, you know. But then, again, like I said, the trailers didn't really touch on them too much. And I kind of expect that the reason why they weren't mentioned in the trailers much is because the Skrull don't really fill the role that you would expect them to. I don't know if I should really go into spoilers in this or not, but you know, I'll try to avoid spoilers for this, and maybe in another video I'll go ahead and include spoilers. And Raph, if I don't immediately reply to your comments, it's because, as you can see, I'm driving. I shouldn't be taking my eyes off the road to read while I drive. So Samuel L. Jackson, highlight of the movie. He's very enjoyable. Ben Mendelsohn, very enjoyable as well. But then, like I said, I've enjoyed him in basically everything I've seen him in. Nice departure. Ben Mendelsohn is not actually playing a Weasley villain type character for once. He's much more snarky and smart-assed than his previous notable characters. Those being I'm blanking on his character's name, but in The Dark Knight Rises, the businessman who was attempting to take over Wayne Industries and hired Bane, that was Ben Mendelsohn. And of course, Deputy Director Krennic from Rogue One. You know, both of these characters are very scheming and weaselly and kind of skeevy in their own way, but his Skrull character is he's more fun. Just to put it plainly, he's a lot more fun than the previous two characters were. Not saying the previous characters weren't fun, but this guy is a little more snarky and smart alecky in a good, entertaining kind of way. So I really enjoyed him in the movie as well. The actress who plays Captain Marvel's best friend, she did fine. And the effects were pretty good for most of the movie. By and large, the effects work was pretty good, but there are a few scenes where the effects were a problem. So that's pretty much, that's what I liked. You got Sam Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, and the special effects. The de-aging effects in particular were quite good. So that's what I liked about the movie. Now, for what I found to be just kind of okay, Goose the Cat. I'm not going to reveal anything about Goose the Cat, but there are some attempted twists made with the cat that they're amusing. The cat's fun and silly, and you know he's all cute because he's a little cat, or I guess it's supposed to be a she. You know, it's a cute orange kitty. It's fun. And Sam Jackson fawning over the cat is pretty adorable. So Goose was okay. The Kree and the rest of the Skrulls were okay. Camera work was fine. They really didn't do anything fancy with the camera work. They didn't really do anything too fancy with the story. It's pretty by the numbers. It's pretty standard fare. The vast majority of the movie just falls under standard fare. But you know, there's a couple of nice cameo bits from previous characters. Ronan the Accuser, the villain from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, has a small role in this that is pretty decent. I won't tell you the cat isn't good, but they didn't do as much with the cat as I was hoping they were going to do. And yeah, so Goose was good, but could have been better. They could have used him better. And the same goes actually for Agent Coulson. They used the de-aging tech on the actor who plays Agent Coulson. I think that's his name. Could be misremembering. But the guy from the first Avengers movie who they thought was killed by Loki. A young version of him is in this, and he's pretty good. But you know, he's got like 3 scenes in the movie, so his role is small. He doesn't do a whole lot. And the action sequences, they were okay. There were times where they were very well shot, very well paced. I could tell what was going on, but they weren't particularly exciting. And then there were other times where you got multiple shots in a single short segment, rapid succession shots. There were a couple times this happened with Sam Jackson. There were many times this happened with Brie Larson. And it's a trick they use to disguise when an action scene isn't actually flowing as quick and as well as you would like. And the times when it happens with Sam Jackson, in my mind, it's a little bit forgivable because he's an older man. He's up in his 60s. So there's a bunch of quick cut scenes involving him, or at least a couple. But there's quite a few of them with Brie Larson, and mostly it involves the direct hand-to-hand fights. When they're fighting at a distance, and Captain Marvel's using her energy blasts and projection and all that. Coulson. Yes, Agent Coulson. I knew it was something like that. But yeah, when Captain Marvel's using her energy blasts and her superpowers, the fights look decent. They are CGI heavy and a bit schlocky, but they look decent. But when it gets into close quarters combat, fist to fist, which there isn't a whole lot of in this movie, but there's enough. For the most part, the close quarters fights are lots of quick cut sequences. In fact, the only one that I can remember where that wasn't the case was in the scene where she punches the scroll that disguised himself as an old lady. That one was not done that way, but mainly it wasn't done that way because that fight was mostly done in CGI. And it's the best looking CGI fight in the movie. That, what you will. Beyond that, the Stan Lee cameo was okay. It is actually, it's more for people like myself who are old enough to remember some of the previous work Stan Lee was in, most specifically old enough to remember 1995 and Mallrats. Because I'll just say what he's doing. He's on the train. It's right before the old lady fight. Like, Bree spots him on the train, and he's reading from the script to Mallrats. He's practicing his lines. So that was pretty fun. It's not a it's not a super involved cameo. He doesn't say anything to Captain Marvel. He's just kind of rehearsing his lines from the Mallrats script. She sort of like pulls the script out of the way to make sure it's not the old lady, and they just smile at each other. That's basically it. So other than that, like I said, most of the movie was okay. So let's move now finally into the things that I didn't enjoy so much, that really didn't work. And for the most part, I gotta be honest, Brie Larson. I will say she was better in this than I expected her to be. She wasn't quite as flat and wooden as I expected her to be, but she was still flat and wooden. And actually, speaking of Stan Lee, Raph, I do want to mention a specific thing they did for Stan that I'm saving it for the end, but it was the highlight of the movie for me that they did this for Stan. So, but yeah, Brie Larson was better than I expected, but really, and it's not, I can't put full blame on her because part of this is the writing in the movie, but she is flat, she is wooden. The closest she gets to showing emotion is when she's being snarky with Samuel L. Jackson, and really those are her best moments in the movie. When she is bantering with Sam Jackson, it does still feel stilted, and it does still feel unnatural, but it feels less stilted and unnatural than her other dialogue. And I want to make it clear, I have seen far worse in the way of stilted and unnatural acting. Brie Larson was not the worst offender in the world, but she's still not great, and I don't think that she's going to build up the fan appreciation. I don't think she's going to build up the level of excitement that Marvel really wants her to build up. And I'm almost positive for this because, this is the second day the movie's been out. And honestly, I wanted to see Alita Battle Angel instead of this, but, two of my friends wanted to go see this, so I went to see this with them. Come the end of the movie, once the credits rolled, less than a quarter of the theater applauded, and the applause lasted for maybe 5 seconds. So this movie didn't really hype anyone. It didn't get anyone who was there particularly excited. The comedy bits only got a couple of chuckles, and by and large, like I said, middle of the road movie. But yeah, the big problem is Brie Larson just doesn't excite the crowd. She's not able to get anyone to really care. And most of her dialogue and most of her acting in general is flat and emotionless, which is kind of ironic considering they keep going on in the movie about how she needs to, practice control her emotions. She can't just let loose or else she won't be able to control her power, which is just, it's stupid because there's no point in the movie where she loses her emotions, where she loses control. The closest she gets to showing any kind of loss of control of her emotions is her being snarky. And that's nowhere near losing any control of her emotions. Yes, yeah, she's a Mary Sue. She has powers and uses them. Like, that's basically it. She doesn't even really have particular weaknesses that they show either. Which is a huge problem. There's no real adversity for her to face, no real adversity for her to overcome. And so there's nothing to connect the audience to her. She can't make people care. And this is actually going more into the writing of the movie. A lot of the writing for the movie I didn't care for. There were moments that got a few chuckles that were kind of fun, but mostly it's just generic sci-fi stuff. You've seen it before. There's not a whole lot to get invested in, not a whole lot to get attached to. And, it is what it is. It's not terrible, but for an origin story movie this late into the MCU, 10 years into the MCU, well after the fact that origin story movies are basically done with, consider the fact that, the most recent set of new character Marvel movies, the most recent pair, those being Spider-Man Homecoming and Black Panther, were not origin stories. In fact, the only origin story movie that Marvel had recently was Ant-Man. That was the last one, up until this one. And unfortunately, with there being nothing to really grab onto, it's not going to build the kind of excitement needed to make Brie Larson's Captain Marvel the face of the franchise the way they've been touting her. So that's a big problem. That was something I really didn't like about that movie. Another aspect I didn't like was her costume. And this is kind of nitpicky. The costume it's kind of just generic. You get your red, gold, and blue. It starts out as like green, silver, and black. And honestly, it looked better, in my opinion, as the green, silver, and black Kree Special Forces uniform than it did when they made it the Captain Marvel costume. But the main thing I didn't like is she has this face mask that comes up. Kind of like Star-Lord's face mask, except it covers her whole head, except for the stupid mohawk that it makes out of her hair. Somehow, her shoulder-length hair becomes an inch long to make this stupid, fugly-ass mohawk just poking out of the top of her helmet, and it looks so stupid. But the worst thing about it, the reason why I'm mentioning this specifically, is because every time this shows up, the effect is CGI. Or at least it looks like it is. If it isn't CGI, it sure fucking fooled me into thinking it was, and it was hideous. Which reminds me, the bad CGI. There's a couple of moments in the movie, towards the end in particular, where the CGI schlockfest is starting, and it looks awful. One scene in particular, when she is ejected from the little space lab that the final battle starts in, she starts falling to Earth, and as she's falling, she's spinning around trying to get control of herself, and like she starts falling back first, and it zooms really tight in on her face. It's like most of the screen is taken up by her face and shoulders, and it's all CGI, and it is noticeably CGI, and it's bad. It's not Superman's fake lips in Justice League bad, but it's pretty fucking bad. And it just takes you right the fuck out of what's going on. Which, again, is not saying much because there's not exactly super high stakes in the movie. But yeah, it pulls you right out of what's going on. Another thing I didn't like, there's a twist involved with the Kree and the Skrull. It's one of those kinds of twists that, if they had a better writing team and a better actress heading the movie, this twist could have worked pretty nicely. But they didn't. And so this twist, on top of all the advertising surrounding the movie, feels unnecessarily political. Which then leads me to the part of the movie I liked the least, and that was the blatant girl power moments. Most of these happen in the first act of the movie, the first third of the movie. And it's during this bit where the Skrull are kind of trying to, like read through her memories and figure out, this, there's a mystery surrounding this woman that Carol Danvers knew before she got amnesia and was taken by the Kree. And they're trying to figure out who this woman is by digging through her memories. And pretty much all of the memories are memories of her doing something and then failing at it. And some guy being an asshole to her. It's like she's racing go-karts and is going along, and this boy drives up like, "You're going too fast. You need to slow down." And young Carol Danvers starts looking angry and presses on the pedal to go faster and fucking crashes and gets flung out of there, like thrown out of her go-kart. The go-kart goes spinning and almost rolls over her, and her dad comes up. "What were you thinking? You shouldn't be out there." He's not worried about the fact that his daughter's obviously injured. No, he's like, "You shouldn't be out there," because he's a guy, so he's got to be an asshole in these fucking flashbacks. Literally every guy in these flashbacks is just an asshole to her for no good reason other than to promote the girl power narrative. And it's super cringy. So we start with her doing go-karts as a little kid, and it coming from a little boy, and then from her dad. And then we go into her, I believe we went into her like in the army or in the Air Force, going into the Air Force for the boot camp. And they're doing the physical training, the rope swing thing. And she tries swinging to a rope and falls as like all the guy soldiers are heckling her. And when she like just plants face first on the ground, basically, which was kind of funny. The way she falls, technically she falls shoulder first, but she practically goes face planting into the ground, which was kind of hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty fucking funny. But then this guy comes up, and he's just like this asshole, like lording over with this like cocky look in his face. "You're never gonna fly." It's just like total asshole again. And then it goes, she's in a bar with the black woman who's her friend, and they're singing karaoke and stuff. And this like guy is basically like in a cowboy. He's like, "Oh, you're not a real pilot. I mean, you know why they call it the cockpit, right?" And it's just so fucking cringy. Fortunately, most of these moments, like I said, are at the early side of the movie. There's not that many of them, but God, do they stand out like a sore fucking thumb. And it's just painful to watch this shit. It's so patronizing and so just not entertaining at all. But the other big girl power parts that were really dumb came towards the end of the movie. Mainly the start of the big climactic final fight scenes. Because as Carol unlocks her powers, as Captain Marvel fully unlocks her abilities that she has been, we've been told anyway, we haven't been shown, but we've been told she struggles with using her abilities. We've never seen her struggle with it. She always seems to use the energy blasts fucking perfectly when she uses them, but we've been told she struggles with it. So all of a sudden, she figures out that, minor spoiler warning, she figures out that her powers weren't given to her by the Kree, but that they were dampening her powers. So she breaks the device that's dampening her powers, and all of a sudden, she goes like fucking Super Saiyan. She's glowing, and her hair is standing up and everything. It's Super Saiyan, and she is just able now to perfectly use these powers that we have been told repeatedly she struggles with, that her inability to keep her emotions in check, which again, I repeat, we never see this being the case, but that makes her struggle with her ability to properly control her powers. And she talks about how, like, I can do it. No, you can't control your powers yet. You need more practice. We're told this all the time. But, so, I'm getting off with too much of a tangent about the powers, because that's a very minor gripe, honestly. The big thing I didn't like, this to me was the cringiest part of the movie. The fight starts. She unlocks her powers. She's in this room with the other, like, enemies she's gonna fight. And Just a Girl by No Doubt is the opening song to the fight. And it doesn't fit at all. It's super cringy. And, like, when it started playing, my buddy Eric and I just look at each other like, are you fucking serious? And we just started laughing because it was so dumb, so bad. So that was the cringiest part of the movie. But there's one last cringy moment that comes, like, near the very end, where a character that she has built up a long time relationship with is basically telling her that, you know, like, you've got your powers, but they don't mean anything, you know, because you can't control them. Again, we're being told this stuff, but we've never seen any evidence of this being the case. And he basically says to her, the only way you can prove that you're ready to be on your own is if you could beat me without your powers. So, you know, prove to me that you could beat me. And of course, she's got fucking Super Saiyan powers. She's not just gonna sit there and fist fight this guy. She blasts him in the chest, then walks over and says, I don't have to prove anything to you. Okay, don't gotta prove anything to the guys. All right, we get it. You're a girl power movie. You're trying to play yourself off as one. Cool. What the fuck ever. So that, all the cringy girl power moments, and honestly, all the cringy 90s references. All of the 90s references were cringy. All but one. The only one that wasn't really cringy is when she gets her little grunge outfit with the coat and everything and the 9 Inch Nails t-shirt that she just grabbed off some random store mannequin before stealing this guy's motorcycle. And the moment with this guy was another cringy guys are assholes kind of moment too. But I digress. That was the only one that wasn't super cringy because, yeah, okay, it was a super fucking common style in the mid-90s. The grunge style was really common. All right, fine, I can let that one slide. But all the other 90s references just felt so goddamn hokey and cringy. They were painful to watch. So, all in all, Captain Marvel is a very middle-of-the-road movie. And one good thing is there is absolutely nothing in it whatsoever that is any kind of essential watching for Endgame. The only reason you might want to watch this movie beforehand would be to get to know Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, as a character. But there's not a character to get to know to begin with, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, beyond that, there is two other things that are revealed in it. Both of them cringy, little twists on the canon. One of them is the revelation on how the Avengers Initiative came to be, and rather specifically, the revelation on how it was named is pretty cringy. The other, I'm not going to state what it is, because if you are going to see the movie, I want you to be able to experience the cringe in full. I will just say that there is a moment of new canon made about a specific character that we have gotten to know very, very well over the course of these many Marvel movies. A character that is much beloved from an actor that is much beloved. And it's the stupidest fucking thing in the entire MCU. it's the stupidest fucking thing. The revelation of how this certain character ended up with this certain very recognizable trait is fucking dumb. So, yeah, my overall thoughts on the film, it's a 50-50 ride. It's a straight middle of the road, 5 out of 10. There's nothing new and exciting here. There's nothing to really get particularly invested in, apart from a couple decent performances. Like I said, Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, as always, is very fun. And he's involved in the movie a lot more than one might have thought. This is practically a buddy cop movie. But, yeah, Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, as always, is a lot of fun. So he's worth watching. Ben Mendelsohn as the leader of the Skrull is quite entertaining as well. But by and large, I'd say it's a 5 out of 10. It is not essential watching. You don't need to worry about it. However, the best part of the movie comes at the very beginning. The Marvel Studios title scroll is altered for this movie into a beautiful tribute to Stan Lee. Instead of seeing the pages from the comics and scenes from the other movies, we get photographs of Stan throughout the years, shots of him from interviews and cameos from the previous movies, and by and large, a beautiful tribute to Stan. Shame that it had to come at the start of a very mediocre entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but still, it was a wonderful thing to see. And, you know, I have to admit, throughout that entire opening segment, I had a big grin on my face, and it felt warm. Really, it gave the most emotion I felt throughout the entirety of the film. So, yeah, that's about it for my thoughts on Captain Meh-velous. Yeah, it's average, middle of the road. If you've seen a amnesia sci-fi hero story before, you've seen Captain Marvel. You're not really missing anything. The cringy stuff is very cringy. The good stuff, as little of it as there is very good. And the remaining 80% or so, meh, not missing much. So that's all I've got to say today on this matter, friends and gamers of all stripes. Excuse me. Oh, wow. Anyway, yeah, Captain Marvel, solid 5 out of 10. Not really worth taking your time to go see it in theaters. Honestly, I would just wait for it to come out on a streaming platform, or just find it somewhere else online a few weeks down the line. You know, there's no particular reason to go out of your way to see this movie, especially if you take umbrage with the advertising, which I did. I didn't plan. I actually was going to skip this movie. I was considering skipping this movie entirely, but I figured, you know, I do occasionally talk about movies and characters and stuff on my channel, so I figured I probably should at least give it a shot some point down the line. I didn't expect to see it opening weekend, but hey, my friends were free today. They wanted to see it today, so I saw it today. In any case, friends and gamers of all stripes, those are my final thoughts on Captain Marvel. Middle of the road, bog standard fare. Don't worry about seeing it in theaters before Endgame. You won't be missing much. So if you like this video, you like what I had to say here, feel free to leave a like, comment below with your own thoughts on the movie if you've seen it, or thoughts surrounding the movie if you haven't. And yeah, I will be back tomorrow with my third character showcase, where we will be looking at the legendary Super Saiyan turned exiled warrior Broly, and seeing how the reimagining of a character can add so much in terms of depth and flavor and really turn an otherwise bland concept into something pretty incredible. So, friends and gamers of all stripes, it is now that I must bid you adieu. As always, my name is GM Dave. I am your man behind the screen, and it is my sincere hope that you continue to roll high, role play well,